They were picked to finish 1, 2, and 3 in the conference. Still no word yet on when USC freshman Bronny James will be cleared to start practicing with the team. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
On October 12, 2022, Nuri Martinez resigned from the Los Angeles City Council. This came a few days after the world heard Nuri and other elected members of the council speak disparagingly about black people, indigenous people, and others.
This white guy with this little black kid bouncing off the effing walls on the floor. There's nothing you can
And what participants believed was a private conversation. Racism, colorism, homophobia, and bigotry were exposed like never before. The effort to undermine the political influence of black fellow citizens was specifically targeted by these so-called leaders. Everyday people stormed the doors of City Hall demanding immediate resignations. Even the President of the United States called for resignations. On Thursday, October 12th, 5 to 7 p.m., KBLA Talk 1580 will host a day of dialogue on the anatomy of anti-black racism and bigotry in Los Angeles with an all-star panel of civic leaders. Don't miss this conversation. Thursday, October 12th, live from 5 to 7 p.m. with an encore performance from 7 to 9 p.m. only on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
One, two, three, go! Try to keep it coming. Things ain't always smooth, but I'll be alright as long as I can find the groove. Yes, I will. Somehow I know that I can make it. You seem like my style. Don't you worry, I'm gonna be around a while. Yes, I will. I'm just happy to see you talk to me back in style again.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavisSmileyShow.com or wherever you get your podcast and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, two conversations. Up first, two-time Super Bowl champion, three-time Pro Bowler, first-round draft pick, and Jim Thorpe Award recipient, Philadelphia Eagles Malcolm Jenkins knows a thing or two about winning. He joins us at the top of hour two to discuss his new book, What Winners Won't Tell You. What Winners Won't Tell You. Malcolm Jenkins at the top of hour two. On the B side of hour two, this would be a career first for me today. Over the 3 decades of my broadcast career, I have never interviewed anyone with a first name spelled Tavis. I thought I was the only one. This brother pronounces his first name Tavis, but this should be a lot of fun. So, come January, Iowa holds the first caucus for the 2024 presidential election, as you well know. Tavis Hall put the black in Black Hawk County, having just won a supervisorial seat on the board there. So there are some black folks in Iowa. In fact, Tavis calls Waterloo the black capital of Iowa. So it's Tavis and Tavis, keep that straight, on the backside of hour two. In our third hour, Michael Melchner was hired by Thurgood Marshall to be on staff at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Years later, he would represent the GOAT, Muhammad Ali. Later still, he became one of the leading forces behind abolishing America's death penalty. I can promise you that you will not be disappointed when Michael Melchner joins us today in hour three. You don't want to miss that. But in this first hour today, two more conversations. On the B side of this hour, California just became the first state in the nation to enact a law to combat the crisis of missing black youth and black women. You have no doubt heard of the Amber Alert. Well, now there is an Ebony Alert. California Governor Gavin Newsom has just signed the bill into law, and the author of that historic piece of legislation, California State Senator Stephen Bradford, joins us on the backside of this hour. That said, we commence today's show in dialogue with the Dean of the Medill School of Journalism at Northwestern University, talking about a recent study which finds that most Black Americans see news coverage of them as racist or racially insensitive. I am pleased to welcome Professor and Dean Charles Whitaker to this program. Dean Whitaker, how are you today, sir?
I'm good, Tavis. How are you?
Man, if I complained about being ingrate, I'm doing well. Delighted to have you on, and thank you for the time that we do have to talk about this recent study. Let me just ask you to unpack it for me. Take it away.
Well, Tavis, we've known for quite some time that African Americans see themselves portrayed largely as the victims and perpetrators of crime. It is why African Americans tune out in droves to a large extent to mainstream media. It is why African American media exists. It is why my former boss, John Johnson, started Ebony Magazine so that we could see the full panorama of the Black experience and not the sort of pathology that was only displayed even at the time of the dawning of Ebony Magazine. We could see more of ourselves. And so this study merely provides us empirical evidence of something that we have known for quite some time.
First of all, I know John Johnson, who I knew well, and obviously you knew well, is smiling down, thinking of you, his former colleague, the dean of the Medill School at Northwestern. That's a big deal, man. We call that high cotton around here. So I know Mr. Johnson is smiling on that reality.
I owe him a lot. He was a great mentor, friend and mentor of mine.
We all do. Whether we know it or not, we all owe him a great debt of gratitude. And so I take your point. The thing about this is not surprising to your point is that we've always known that the media portrays us in a different light. Somebody once said that you see black men on television, Dean Whitaker, in one of two positions: handcuffs in the front or handcuffs in the back. So we know that they've always portrayed us in a particular in a unique way, put it that way. But so why is this recent study so revealing if it tells us what we've always known?
Again, I think we've known it anecdotally, and it hasn't provided the empirical evidence that states emphatically that Black people are disgusted with media. When people talk about mistrust of media and distrust of media, they often go straight to the conservative side and talk about, the forgotten white people who hate the liberal press. They never really talk about the progressive folks and Black folks who also have a mistrust and distrust of media. And this study sort of puts that front and center.
A lot more to talk about. Just getting started with the Dean of the Medill School at Northwestern, Charles Whitaker. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom. Escalade IQ. This the intro to the all-electric Cadillac perfected like Zoom. And on a full charge, you get 450 miles without the stop haiku. This is what I do. Daddy fat intellect since 92. Linked all the way back, panoramic roof. Come with 24-inch rim standard. Ooh, why? Shawty don't kill him. Cadillac diamond in the back, cold chillin'. And when I'm on attack, on the track is no ceiling. Sky's the limit. You hear me? You hear me? Straight drop, no parachutes. Lay lines like a longitude and latitude. Dilly, beloved, clearly we're hustling. Bustin', truckin'. Cadillac, Cadillac, Cadillac.
For more on the Escalade IQ, visit Cadillac.com.
Available late 2024. GM estimate 450-mile range. On a full charge based on development testing and/or analytical projection. Consistent with SCHA 1634 revision 2017 MCT. Range subject to change prior to production. Annual rates may vary based on service factors, including ambience temperature, terrain, battery age, and condition loading, and how you use and maintain your vehicle.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here with a quick recap from my time at JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. There were speakers Ian Dunlap, Damon John, Lynn Richardson, MC Light, Don Kennedy, to name a few. Take a listen to what Justin Grant, Community Development Lead at Chase's Advancing Black Pathway, let's see what he had to say.
So I'm Justin Grant. I lead community development and national partnerships for JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Pathway strategy. And so we're focused on strengthening the economic foundation of black communities, and we're making targeted investments in programs like the Advancing Black Wealth Tour to help us get our tools and resources out to the community to drive sustained impact over time.
So when it comes to black and brown people, it sounds like Chase is making it their personal responsibility not only to facilitate these events, but to educate and provide resources. So, Mr. Grant, I have to ask, what does wealth building look like for the individual?
It's home ownership. It's having that freedom to be able to start your own business and create jobs in your community. And it's having that long-term plan towards retirement, having that vision for what you want your life to be, and you have the resources to actually live it.
I'm Aisha Cairo. Thanks for sticking around. That was my recap from Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. First stop was here in LA, and they're taking it national.
Oh, this cold.
Honey?
Honey?
Honey, you need DayQuil Severe Honey.
DayQuil Severe Honey gives you powerful cold and flu symptom relief with a honeylicious taste, because life doesn't stop for a cold.
Okay, I'm ready to go.
No, I'm getting a cold.
Honey.
Try DayQuil Severe Honey for powerful cold and flu relief. DayQuil Severe with honey flavor. The daytime coughing, aching, stuffy head, fever, honeylicious, power through your day medicine. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Charles Whitaker, Dean of the Medill School at Northwestern. In case you've just tuned in, there's a new study out that says that black Americans see news coverage about them as racist or racially insensitive. At the risk of sounding or asking a question that would be laughable, I want to ask anyway, why, Dean Whitaker, why?
Why do we...
Yeah, why is
the coverage racist?
Exactly.
Or why do we think that way?
I'll both. I'll do both.
Well, first, there simply are just not enough folks who look like us in newsrooms making decisions about news coverage. I mean, that's the bottom line, and it has always been the case. There was a period when we were making progress, but as news outlets have contracted in the age of digital disruption, and newsroom staffs have gotten smaller and smaller. We were oftentimes last hired, first fired, and at a time when many of us should have been rising to the top of those outlets, we were abandoning the industry. And so not having enough cultural competence, not knowing enough about the broad spectrum of the black community is one of the great reasons for this. And again, I think the communities feel that. I think black folks understand that and are turning away from a lot of mainstream media because of that.
What's the end result of our being portrayed in the way that we are in the mainstream media?
It reinforces stereotypes. I happen to live in a largely African-American community in Chicago, and when I tell people where I live, they say, "Oh my God, you're taking your life in your hands. How can you live in an area that's so dangerous?" And I live in, what is a fine working class to upper middle class neighborhood, but because it is predominantly black, people have these impressions of it that are reinforced by what they see in media, and that also reinforces a sense of it makes others feel that black people are not worthy, that their communities are not worthy, that they are these outposts of crime and dysfunction, and again, doesn't really show the full range of the experience.
What do you make of? Let me just preface by saying I'm not naive in asking this, but what do you make of the fact that black folk have and are achieving in record numbers in a variety of spaces, are achieving in every field, frankly, of human endeavor? And yet this sort of racist or racially insensitive coverage of us continues. I mean, we've gone through the first black president. We're now at the first black vice president. And again, in every sphere of human influence and effort and endeavor, black people are achieving at high levels. And yet this coverage of us as a collective continues unabated. How do you read that?
Again, I do think a lot of it has to do with the disruption in mainstream media right now. I think we were making gains in the 80s and 90s. We were seeing more and more Black people coming into mainstream media. They were beginning to rise, and just as that was happening, I think the disruption of the introduction of digital media, the flocking away of audiences, sort of swept away a lot of those gains, and we are now trying to reclaim them. We are starting to see some Black folks rise to the top of some news outlets. Again, major news organizations have Black people who are at the top. However, we have not made enough of a difference, and there are not enough people shaping coverage to really see the full impact of that. I am hopeful that we will. I actually do not despair. I think that I think the fact that there are so many ways in which our stories can be told is a good thing, but we've not made the progress that we should have made in media at this moment in time.
And yet, I'm trying to juxtapose the comment you've made just now, Dean Whitaker, with the other reality, which is that Black folk are telling their own stories in so many uniquely different ways. So the flip side of that burgeoning growth of digital media is that Black folk can now get in where they fit in. Everybody's in the blogosphere, everybody's in the Twitterverse, everybody's in the metaverse, whatever verse we're talking about, Black folk are a part of it now. So while we may still feel that the mainstream media coverage of us is racist or certainly racially insensitive, are we not at the point now where so many more of us are having our own say in our own words?
That is absolutely right. I think you are correct. The beauty of the era that we're in is that barriers to publishing have been torn down by the digital age, right? It is now anyone can publish and everyone is publishing, as you said, on a multitude of platforms. But that is that's a double-edged sword, because what also happens is people do get to burrow in their echo chambers. They do get to sort of, we don't have a national media that brings us together so that we all have the same perspective about communities and even about truth. I mean, one of the reasons the country is so ungovernable now is because everyone gets to burrow into their own media and accept whatever facts they want to from the people who really are just confirming their biases. And so that is a troubling aspect of the fact that we have this proliferation of media, but at the same time, it allows us to see ourselves. Again, going back to John Johnson, the reason that outlet was started, Ebony and Jet magazines was started, because we couldn't see ourselves in mainstream media, and that offered us an outlet. But it also gave other people a chance to see us as well. We are our patterns of media consumption now are so entrenched that I don't think we are reading as widely and seeing things as widely. And so that really reinforces stereotypes and makes it difficult for us to break through in mainstream media.
How are the results of this particular study challenged? How will they change to the extent they will as we move closer to that date on the calendar, when for the first time ever this country will be majority minority? Does that change anything?
Well, I think it says to people who are in mainstream media and people who are thinking about launching other media outlets that there has to be more cultural competence in your newsrooms. The newsrooms have to do a better job of reflecting this majority, minority, if you will, society that we are about to enter, because that is the only way you can survive. If people are disgusted and disappointed with your coverage, they will. There are many other outlets that they can turn to, and for your own survival, it behooves you to better reflect those communities.
For those who produce this news that we find to be racist or racially insensitive, how might I put this? Is that, would you call that a malign neglect of the humanity and dignity of Black life and Black people? or would you call it ignorance? They just don't know what they're doing.
That's too negative. Too negative. So you could be too negative alternatives here. I think both of those are a little harsh, though both of those are absolutely true, right? I mean, I do think people don't know what they don't know. And we are a society in which people do commune with people who are like themselves. And so that means that we don't know. And it's easy when you're covering communities to sort of resort to stereotypes. So yes, it is something of benign neglect. I do think because people have an opportunity to see all sorts of depictions, to see depictions of Black people, they assume that those are the correct depictions. And so those negative stereotypes wind up being reinforced and repurposed and pushed out time and again. And we just have to challenge ourselves. And there have to be people in the newsroom to challenge them to think differently when they are depicting Black folks.
I mean, I think of the obvious example, and there are any number of these we could point to. But when you have news directors, white news directors, who decide, or assignment desk editors, that they want to cover welfare, for example.
It's the classic example.
Exactly,
right.
It's the classic example. They go find some Black folk on welfare.
Right.
When you and I both know that the majority of folk in this country on welfare are not Black folk, and so I don't know if that's just again, a malign neglect
I think that's just ignorance.
Yeah, just ignorance. Exactly. That's my point.
That's just ignorance, right?
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
And
that I think is ignorance.
Yeah, it is ignorance. And that's my question.
We need people in the newsroom to push back on that.
Yeah. Well, my thing is, if it's ignorance, it's one thing. Let me back up. Dr. King once said that you can't legislate morality. You can't legislate morality, and we all get that. So it's one thing if it's ignorance. If it's ignorance, maybe they can be taught better. Maybe they can be shown a better way. But if it's born of just a flat out neglect of us, just not wanting to show us in a better light, I don't know what to be done about the latter. So what is to be done about the ignorance?
Again, I think education and having people in the newsroom who can push back, having leaders in the newsroom who will say, no, that is not how we're doing that story. I know that's the way that story's been done since time immemorial. That is not correct. That's not what the data show. We need to do the story in a way that is a better reflection of reality. I think better of most of my colleagues in the media than to say they are doing this that there's willful ignorance involved. I do think the ignorance is born out of not knowing and a sort of, for lack of a better word, laziness, a dependence on tropes. And we just have to get out of the habit of being so dependent on tropes.
I don't mean to put upon you, but it seems to me that this starts at places like where you are. It's one thing to keep saying we need folk in newsrooms. Well, these folk in newsrooms come from places like Medill. So what are y'all what are y'all teaching the good white folk at Medill?
So we absolutely have been pushing cultural competence. We have been talking about the ways in which our students of all demographics show up in communities. We've been talking about, before we as an institution, and I think many institutions that teach journalism sort of taught this parachute journalism. You go into a community, you don't know much about it. You grab somebody by the lapel, you put a microphone in their face or a tape recorder in their face. You do a very superficial scanning of the community, and then you write your report. We're saying that's not sufficient. And I know that there are deadline pressures, but when you go into that community, you have to have a better sense of the nuances and the depth of that community before you start writing a report that paints a community or an event or an individual, for that matter, in a particular light. So we are absolutely trying to address that. And I'm happy to say our students are demanding it of us. Our students, again, of all demographics, are demanding that we better equip them to go out and tell stories that are a better reflection of reality.
The other thing that troubles me, Dean Whitaker, is that while you keep saying that we need more of the right persons in newsrooms who are sort of, chin-checking people when they make these stupid statements and come up with these insane ideas or continue to do things as they've always been done. The problem with that is, and you're right, there's no question about it, the problem with that is that we are at a moment right now where everybody in corporate America is turning away from DE&I. That's all we heard after the murder of George Floyd, right? Everybody wanted to do better. Yeah. Everybody promised to do better. Well, now that the spotlight is off of that, and we're 3 years past that, and people are trying to, make more money for their shareholders, positions get cut, and there are all kinds of stories, as you well know, that underscore this every day, that DE&I is under attack, and these executives are being shown the door. They're being pink slipped every day. And the newsrooms, corporate media, is not absolved of that. So we say we need more people who look like us in newsrooms making these decisions, but that ain't the reality on the ground.
Absolutely, but we got to hold people's feet to the fire. And again, there is a business reality to DE&I. We too often, when we talk about DE&I, we talk about it as a moral imperative. The business reality is, if you don't do a better, as this study shows, if you don't do a better job of reaching and reflecting those communities, you are losing that audience, and that means you are losing those eyeballs and losing those dollars. So make the business case. Wall Street listens to dollars. They don't listen to moral imperatives. They have to know that you are leaving money on the table if you don't do a better job at this.
Well, see, that's why I asked that question earlier about what happens in the coming years when we become a minority country.
Absolutely.
My thesis is simply this. If you are a content producer or if you are a product producer, it doesn't matter, content producer, product producer, if the country is black and brown, who are you going to sell to? I mean, who's your consumer going to be? Who's gonna watch or read your content? So if you're a content producer or a product producer, and that is the impending reality, what you gonna do?
Yep. Correct. That's right. As I said, this is a business imperative, not just a moral imperative.
Yep. So
it is a moral imperative as well, but we know we don't win that argument, right?
Yeah. And what do you say finally to those who are either participated in this study or certainly mirror the results of the study, which would be most of us, who find that the major American news coverage of us is still racist or racially insensitive? What do you tell those persons to do?
Well, I am call me an optimist, but I see the young people that I interact with every day, and they have a different sensibility and sensitivity. They are growing up in a much more multicultural world, and at least the young people that I come in contact with are highly attuned to that and highly sensitive to that. They are reading this study, and again, no matter what their demographic, they want to do better. They want our media to be better, and I am pinning my hopes on them, though not waiting for them. I think we have to make sure that the newsrooms that they go into are receptive to their desire to want the coverage to be a better reflection of society.
You can search the story and read it for yourself. It's called Black Americans See News Coverage About Them as Racist or Racially Insensitive. We are delighted to have been in dialogue with the Dean of the Medill School of Journalism at Northwestern, Charles Whitaker. Dean Whitaker, good to have you on. All the best to you. Thanks for your time, sir.
Thank you so much, Tavis. Good to hear from you.
Good to hear your voice. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
From Lamert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. People receiving Social Security benefits will see a smaller cost of living increase than the past 2 years. The Social Security Administration has announced the annual cost of living adjustment for next year will be 3.2%. Bottom line, the average monthly payment for retirees will be a little bit more than $1,900 come January. A new survey shows how Americans want Congress to address racial inequality. Conducted by the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies at the University of Chicago, the poll shows nearly 4 in 5 Black Americans say that Congress passing anti-discrimination laws is their top priority. White Americans said their highest priority is having Congress pass legislation to ensure all Americans have the right to vote. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Had troubles earlier in Linwood. Looks like they're wrapping up this wreck on the 105 West. The 710 cleared but busy from Bellflower Boulevard. The 105 East as you get to the 710 North transition. Stalled vehicle there onto the right shoulder. Downtown on the 10 West Mateo Santa Fe. Broken down vehicle stuck in a center traffic lane. And the 10 West around Garfield Alhambra. Earlier wreck sitting on the right. Diamond Bar. Look out for the gravel spill on that 57 south of Brea Canyon. That's taking up 2 of the right lanes there. And we're busy coming away from the 60. And Boyle Heights to 60 West just before the 5 crash onto the right shoulder. Causing a downer from Downey Road.
Lowe's knows fall is the perfect time for outdoor projects. Right now, you can keep your yard looking its best and save. Take care of leaves with leaf blowers starting at just $89.98. Lowe's knows home improvement. While supplies last, see store for details.
Wendy's new Pumpkin Spice Frosty is peak fall. It'll make any kind of fall fun even fallier. So no matter how you fall, grab a rich, creamy Pumpkin Spice Frosty from Wendy's today. Limited time only at participating U.S. Wendy's. Vanilla Frosty is temporarily unavailable.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
It happened again. For the second straight year, the Dodgers win 100 games in the regular season, then get eliminated in their first playoff series. The Dodgers lose by 2 last night and got swept by the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Dodgers were also on the wrong end of history. Lance Lynn gave up 4 home runs in the 3rd inning, the first time a team had that many homers in 1 inning in a playoff game. Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, the Dodgers' best hitters, were combined 1 for 21 in the series. Mookie was 0 for 11. The Pac-12 Conference had media day for the upcoming men's basketball season. Arizona, USC, and UCLA were picked to finish 1, 2, and 3 in the conference. Still no word yet on when USC freshman Bronny James will be cleared to start practicing with the team. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
Roll Charmin Ultra Strong when you drop in the beat. It cleans with way less effort on your seat. Yeah, roll it, drop it. Yeah, roll it, drop it. Charmin flows extra strong from the road. Your butt hella clean while you're sitting on the bowl. Yeah, it's all you need for that bathroom groove. Get you in and out without nothing to prove.
Charmin Ultra Strong cleans better so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
Did you know that feeling sluggish or weighed down could be a sign that your digestive system isn't working at its best? Taking Metamucil every day can help. Metamucil fiber powders help promote your daily digestive health using a plant-based fiber called psyllium. The gelling action of this special fiber traps and removes waste so you can feel lighter and more energetic. Metamucil, promoting digestive health for a better you. Learn more at metamucil.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Girl, I have a secret. When I get stressed out, I get sweaty. That's why I use Secret Clinical Antiperspirant. It's like my own secret weapon. For 72 hours, I get Secret's strongest protection against sweat caused by stress, heat, and activity. Because you know how crazy life can get. Plus, it's made with advanced odor fighters that don't just cover up smelliness. They help prevent it from happening in the first place. Believe me, if I weren't wearing Secret, I'd be a hot, smelly mess. Thankfully, Secret works.
Sounds different. Huh. This is Tavis Smiley.
California has just become the first state in the nation to enact a law to combat the crisis of missing black youth and women. You have no doubt heard of the Amber Alert. Well, now there is an Ebony Alert. California Governor Gavin Newsom has just signed the bill into law, and the author of that historic piece of legislation, California State Senator Stephen Bradford, joins us right now to talk about his Ebony Alert. Senator Bradford, first of all, congratulations on a monumental piece of legislation, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Smiley. I appreciate your wanting to discuss this and all the work that you do on a daily basis to educate and inform our community.
Tell me about this Ebony Alert, man. It's a major piece of legislation. We have had conversations ad infinitum, ad nauseum over the course of my career about all these black babies, black children, black women who go missing and are never accounted for, much less searched for. And here you come with this idea to bring online this Ebony Alert. Tell me the backstory.
Well, the data spoke to the need of this piece of legislation, working with organizations like Black and Missing Foundation, as well as the FBI report that stated that almost 37% of individuals that come up missing are people of color. But yet, and still, we very rarely see the type of resources ever dedicated to them to make sure that they're brought home safely. So based on that, working with the NAACP, it just made sense that we move forward with this. Last year, as you well know, we passed a Feather Alert to help bring home our indigenous people. So I thought now was the time that we address this crisis, again, making up only 12% of the state's population and the nation's population, African Americans, but we make up, again, almost 38% of children that come up missing in this country are black kids. So that's what led me in this direction.
Why do you think this issue, the numbers are pretty telling and they're also pretty damning. Why do you think, Steve, Senator Bradford, I've known Steve for so long, sometimes I skip and call him Steve.
But
why do you think, I want the national audience to respect you, so let me call you Senator Bradford. Why do you think those numbers notwithstanding, this issue languished for so long that nobody thought of this idea prior to you?
I can't answer that, but I think it speaks to who we are as a nation, and many times we dismiss those numbers and data that reflect the disparities that African Americans experience every day in this country. And I think it's just rooted in who we are as a nation that we always discount African Americans and say, oh, that's not a priority. So I'm about making not just black folks priorities, but people who are being ignored and marginalized in this state and this nation a priority. And this is, I just think we've been desensitized to, our plight here in this country.
Yep. So I don't want to make any assumptions. Tell me how this Ebony Alert works. We know how the Amber Alert works. Does it work in the same sort of way?
It's going to follow that same model. Only difference is right now it's from 12 to 25. On the Amber Alert is for 17 and younger. It also specifies that an individual who has some kind of physical or mental challenges, individuals who are suspected of being sex trafficking or abducted, those will trigger when we put out the Amber Alert. Or folks that came up missing under suspicious reasons as well.
So now I'm curious, why the difference in age from the Amber Alert to the Ebony Alert?
Because on the Amber Alert, like I say, it's 17 and under. We've found that, again, African Americans much older come up missing, and there's no resources ever put out for them. So that's why we expanded to 25. We also saw a majority of those individuals who are being sex trafficking in this state, in this country, are between 17 and 25, and they're primarily black women. But again, they're listed most of the time as prostitutes or juvenile prostitutes. So that's why we expanded the age.
What do we know about? It's a great piece of legislation. I'm so glad to see you doing the work, man. You've been there. You've been passing some pretty good bills, and you're termed out. Which I'll get to that in a second. You're in your last term, as a matter of fact. But you've gotten some good stuff through while you've been there. But let me ask what we know about the success of the Amber Alert. I'm trying to get a sense of what kind of progress we can make now that the Ebony Alert is part of law here. And as I say all the time, what happens in California politics either cast a long shadow or a long sunbeam across the nation. I think this will cast a long sunbeam across the nation. Now that it's on the books in California, other states, I suspect, will likely do the same thing. But what do we know about the success of the Amber Alert? Are there any lessons we can draw from how pivotal this Ebony Alert will be in the coming months and years?
I mean, we know the data speaks volumes that, again, it's very rarely triggered for people of color.
Mm-hmm.
But for those individuals like Gabby Petito, it worked quite well. I mean, unfortunately, she was found dead, murdered by her boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
But we've seen where it was used for, the majority of the white population. Those individuals were brought home safely.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the data just spoke volumes that it was very rarely triggered, for us. So it's hard to make that comparison. But I think what you stated, what we're doing here in California is going to be, the blueprint of what the rest of the country can do. As you stated, and many folks, so goes California, so goes the nation.
Mm-hmm.
I've already been contacted by my colleagues, part of National Black Caucus of State Legislators, who have reached out across the country, asking for more information regarding the Ebony Alert. So I do think it's a great opportunity, but the data specifically as it relates to Amber Alert just shows that the majority of people, or the majority of time when it's triggered, it's for a missing white child or person.
Let me ask you this question, and I'll ask it first, and I'll tell you after I ask it why I ask it. What kind of pushback, to the extent you got some, what kind of pushback did you get pushing this through? It's not easy to get legislation through in this state or any state these days, and to get the governor to sign it, no less. So give me a sense of the fight that you had or didn't have getting this Amber Alert through and onto the governor's desk.
I think, I won't say it was easy, but we continue to provide the data, not only the FBI numbers, black and missing data, and all the information that had been compiled as it relates to missing individuals in this country, and it spoke for itself. And surprisingly, we did not have a lot of opposition amongst my legislative colleagues. There was some folks who laid off of it and refused to vote for it, but for the most part, we got it through both houses with no real challenges, and I think the governor understood the importance of it. Again, the data speaks for itself, and he understood the need for this bill, and that's why he affixed his signature on it Sunday night, and I'm greatly appreciative for that.
So 2 questions that follow up in that regard. Number one, I'm just curious, for those who would vote against something like this to save the lives of black youth and to save the lives of black women, what rationale did you hear from them? Why would they vote against something like this?
The same rationale that we hear that black folks don't deserve reparations, the same argument we hear why we don't need affirmative action. It's that mindset that has oppressed African Americans and said that we were less worthy of anything in this country for over 400 years, and that's the argument. Oh, why we have to have a separate alert? But nobody said, why do you have to have a separate alert for our indigenous brothers and sisters when we passed a feather alert last year? And a lot of folks are probably unaware there's a blue alert for missing police officers. So if we can prioritize bringing our men and women in law enforcement home, we can prioritize bringing these black children and young adults home who are, again, disproportionately ignored when they disappear. They fall off the face of the earth.
So you're prescient and prophetic on top of being a great legislator, because you mentioned exactly where I wanted to go. So when we come forward, since you mentioned the R word, reparations, I want to go there. So for those around the country listening right now who have been following what's happening in California about reparations, Stephen Bradford, the senator who's on this program right now, is the major force in the Senate driving this. There's been a huge task force, all kinds of folk on that task force. But inside the California Senate, Stephen Bradford, senator from Los Angeles, has been really the driving force behind that. And I asked him how much pushback he got for the Ebony Alert, because I wanted to compare and contrast that with the kind of pushback he's getting on reparations. As you know, the task force made its recommendation some time ago. It is now in the purview of the California legislature to figure out what they want to do. How are we going to define reparations, and what's going to be on the governor's desk? You've heard me complain any number of times, not complain, but just make the point that, to my mind, Gavin Newsom has been moonwalking better than Michael Jackson on reparations and a number of other issues that I've had some concerns about with the governor per se, although I celebrate that he signed this Ebony Alert. But Steve Bradford is the main man on this reparations issue, and I want to talk about that since I got him on the line when we come forward. You're listening to State Senator Stephen Bradford here in California on Tavis Smiley.
Unapologetically progressive. Unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
I'm Ebony Loren, and Febrez's new scent, Soothe and Restore, is so good I wrote a song about it.
I know just what I do. Febreze has my favorite scent. Makes the perfect environment. Sweet like sugar, smooth shea butter. What could be better than being with each other now? Breathe that people breathe. La 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 la.
To some, this might sound like a typical family dog. But at Dog Chow, we know that for a veteran suffering from PTSD, this could be the sound of life-saving therapy.
Thanks, Betty.
That's why we've made it our mission to connect every military hero in need with a canine hero of their own. To learn about the simple ways you can help Dog Chow in our mission, visit dogchow.com/veterans.
Wireless headphones. That'll be $200.
I'll use my Capital One Quicksilver card.
Now that's a hit. You used the Capital One Quicksilver card, which makes you the hero of every purchase. With Quicksilver, you earn unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase everywhere.
I wanted running music, but unlimited 1.5% cash back is pretty heroic.
Good instincts. Every hero needs a theme song. The Capital One Quicksilver card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Hey, did you know Vistaprint prints everything a small business needs? Like if a barbershop needs signage, we print outdoor signs, posters, and banners. Or if a ballet school needs merch,
1, 2,
we print tote bags, t-shirts, hoodies, hats. Or if a coffee shop needs a total refresh,
latte for Mike?
Vistaprint designs logos and prints it on menus, mugs, paper bags, anything. Because with Vistaprint, the printabilities are endless. Print it all with 25% off for new customers with code NEW25 at Vistaprint.com.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
All right, State Senator Stephen Bradford. I asked that question moments ago about what kind of pushback you got on the Ebony Alert because I wanted to compare and contrast that, to juxtapose that with the kinds of pushback that you've been getting on the reparations piece. So let me just stand down for a second and ask you to give me and the nation an update on how this reparations piece is moving or not moving in the California legislature.
As you know, we concluded the 2-year task force. The work we completed it on June 29th of this year, and so the report is out. But as far as legislation, there hasn't been any specific bills moving forward yet. The Black Caucus, which I'm the vice chair, 12-member caucus, we will be huddling up as a caucus over the next 2 months to help put meat on the bone, so to speak, to structure that which is in that report and move legislation forward next year. I have a bill, SB 490, that is been introduced, but it's not specific language. We'll work on that specific language again over the next 2 months and be ready to introduce a series of bills come January. And I also want to recognize that since the task force completed its work, there's now a working group comprised of attorney Lisa Holder, who was part of the task force, Dr. Cheryl Grills, Don Tamaki, the only non-African-American member of the task force, and Dr. Javon Scott Lewis. They're have formed a working group that's working to help educate and do outreach throughout the state of California and the nation. So we're going to be working in collaboration with them as well.
What, in terms of range, in terms of scope, you mentioned your bill, SB 490. What do you expect that these bills are going to entail? What do you portend that we're going to be debating when these bills finally make it to committee and we start getting a chance to see what's being recommended in these bills?
Well, continued education. We're looking at, how do we make sure that African Americans descended of chattel slavery have education, have home buying opportunities, have business loan opportunities, even looking at maybe relief from state taxes for a period of time. It's a series of things that we're looking at. Ongoing health care. I would hope overall that we can make reparations, look like the GI Bill, where, that encompasses education, homeowner opportunities, like I say, health care, you name it, ongoing child care. So it's going to be a series because it was a variety of recommendations that were made in that final report. So we're going to have working groups that are going to take on various segments of that, be it the education component, the healthcare component. We have Dr. Akilah Weber, who's part of the Black Caucus. I'm pretty sure she's going to be looking at some of the healthcare things, and disparities that exist for African Americans. So it's going to be a variety of things. And trying to, boil it down to be very intentional and as effective as possible.
We were discussing weeks ago on this program a poll that came out in the state of California that found at this point that overwhelmingly Californians oppose cash. They oppose checks for reparations. I want to take his temperature on that. He gave a fine list, but you notice he did not say money. He did not say cash. And that's in part, I suspect, because of this survey that finds that, again, most Californians, while they're sensitive to the issue, do not believe that writing checks to black folk is the answer. We'll take his temperature on that when we come forward. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good.
Yeah, man.
Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
What's up, party people? It's your favorite MC's favorite rapper, MC Light here. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, authentically powered by Cadillac. And we're going to take it way back to where it started. It was only fitting that hip-hop began with teenagers at a back-to-school jam in the rec room of a South Bronx apartment complex by an 18-year-old brother. By the way, I'm also sure he had a Cadillac parked outside. He noticed the energy on the dance floor when he switched between two turntables, extending the beats, repeating the breaks, and never losing the rhythms. And that was the birth of hip-hop. And from that moment, it took off.
For more on how Cadillac is celebrating hip-hop's 50th, visit Cadillac.com/audacity.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminding you that we keep us safe. The Center for the Pacific Asian Family was founded to help address domestic violence and sexual assault in the Asian and the Pacific Islander communities. The Center for the Pacific Asian Family's mission is to build healthy and safe communities by addressing the root causes and consequences of family violence and violence against women. They are committed to meeting the specific cultural and language needs of the Asian and Pacific Islander women and their families. CPAF's vision is of an Asian and Pacific Islander community that embraces healthy relationships and works in partnership with other communities to eradicate all forms of violence. To access services, volunteer, or for more info, visit nurturingchange.org. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe everyone deserves to be safe. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
The Chase Ink Business Premier Card is made for people who make things happen, like me. I'm Sam, founder and CEO of Manifest, a product design company that makes everyday products designed smarter. I get 2.5% cash back on purchases of $5,000 or more, plus unlimited 2% cash back on all other purchases, which helps us make more smart ideas into a brilliant reality.
The Ink Business Premier Card. Learn more at chase.com/business premier. Chase for business. Make more of what's yours. Real business owner compensated for their participation. Account subject to credit approval. Restrictions and limitations apply. Cards are issued by JP Morgan Chase Bank. Any member FDIC.
Who do you trust to get at the truth?
Tavis Smiley.
That's who. The conversation continues right now.
Just got 3 minutes left in conversation with State Senator Stephen Bradford here in California. He has succeeded once again at getting some major legislation passed through this state. And again, I suspect the nation, other states will follow. It's called an Ebony Alert, and it's designed to combat the crisis of missing black youth and young black women. The governor has signed it into law, and so again, I expect other states will do the same as we've done here in California. That would be a good thing. The rest of the nation is also watching, Senator Bradford, as you know, to see what we're going to do in reparations. And we've discussed it on this program. Others have discussed it as well. It made all kind of national news when this poll came out, this survey that found that most Californians oppose cash payouts for reparations. How do you read that poll?
I'm not surprised at all. I mean, again, anything that's going to benefit African Americans, we always find a way, or this country always finds a way to say no to it. And the only reason I haven't focused on payment is because I just go back to the Genesis. The original reparations was about land, and that's how generational wealth is passed, through land. So that's what I want to focus on, making sure that there are individuals who have never owned property in this country and have been here for generations, making sure that they can become landowners as well. But at the same time, I know the state has a deficit right now, and that's going to be their fallback on why we can't make past cash payments. But at the same time, I would argue, how do you put a figure on over 250 years of wage theft? You know, I don't care what number you threw out, it would never be enough. So that's why I don't kind of like get caught up in, you know, the millions of dollars that people talk about, because even if you paid every African-American descendant of slavery $5 million, it would still not come close to compensating them for what was stolen from them and denied from them for hundreds of years. So that's why I want to focus on the things that we can deliver. And like I say, I'm not surprised by that poll at all.
Yep. So this GI Bill strategy that you're trying to emulate, a bill that has a variety of things in it, from education to housing to child care, tax relief, et cetera, do you think that ultimately there'll be a version that the governor will sign as he did vis-a-vis your Ebony Alert?
I would hope so. I mean, and that's what, again, the Black Caucus is going to work as a team collectively to shepherd this through and get a commitment from the administration and as well as our colleagues, because before it gets to the governor's desk, we got to get, you know, the necessary votes in both the respective houses, and that in and of itself is going to be a challenge. So it's about educating our colleagues on why this is important before we can even talk about a governor's signature. So it's a lot of work ahead of us.
As I mentioned, you've done some good work as a California state senator. You are termed out now, and the streets are talking about the fact that you may be considering a run for lieutenant governor. You want to comment on that or not?
The streets are talking. It's a buzz, and we're going to continue that conversation.
That's why he's a successful politician. He knows how to get out of these things. Senator Bradford, thank you for your time and thank you for your work, and congratulations to you and to all of us in California, and I think across the nation, for showing us that this Ebony Alert can manifest. And I hope other states will do likewise. But thank you for your work and witness. Good to have you on the program.
And thank you for your voice in KBLA.
I appreciate you. More Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.